On June 6, 1994, at 3:47 in the afternoon, a cricket ball sailed high over the boundary rope at Edgbaston Stadium in Birmingham, England, disappearing into the cheering crowd as a young man from Trinidad raised his bat to the sky in exhausted triumph. Brian Charles Lara had just accomplished something that no human being had ever achieved in the 117-year history of first-class cricket. He had scored 501 runs in a single innings, breaking a record that had stood for nearly 40 years, and creating a milestone that still stands unchallenged 3 decades later. But this incredible feat came just 2 months after Lara had already shocked the cricket world by scoring 375 runs against England in a test match, breaking another record that had belonged to the legendary Garfield Sobers for 36 years. In the space of 8 weeks, this 25-year-old left-handed batsman had rewritten cricket's record books twice, establishing himself as the most devastating run scorer the game had ever seen, and beginning a career that would see him carry the hopes and dreams of an entire region on his shoulders while his team crumbled around him. This is the story of Brian Lara, the last great batting genius of West Indies cricket, a man who achieved individual brilliance that may never be equaled, while watching helplessly as the once mighty Caribbean cricket empire collapsed into mediocrity, leaving him to fight lonely battles against the world's best bowlers with little support from his teammates and even less from his cricket board. Brian Charles Lara was born on May 2, 1969, in the small village of Cantaro in Santa Cruz, Trinidad, into a family that knew both struggle and ambition in equal measure. His father, Bunty Lara, worked as a laborer before becoming a construction supervisor, while his mother Pearl raised 11 children in a cramped 3-bedroom house where privacy was a luxury, and every inch of space had to be shared. The Lara household was filled with the sounds of cricket from morning until night, as Brian and his siblings used makeshift bats and balls to play endless games in their tiny yard, developing the lightning-fast reflexes and precise timing that would later make him the most feared batsman in world cricket. Even as a child, Brian showed an almost supernatural ability to judge the flight of a cricket ball, ducking under bouncers and dispatching half volleys to the boundary with a grace and power that seemed impossible for someone so young. At age 6, Brian was enrolled at St. Joseph's Roman Catholic Primary School, where his teachers quickly realized that this quiet, studious boy possessed an extraordinary gift that set him apart from every other child they had ever taught. By age 10, he was already representing his school in inter-school competitions, scoring centuries with such regularity that opposing teams would groan when they saw his name on the team sheet. When Brian was 14, his family made the crucial decision to send him to Fatima College, one of Trinidad's most prestigious secondary schools, where he came under the guidance of cricket coach Harry Ramdas, a man who immediately recognized that he was working with a once-in-a-generation talent. Ramdas spent countless hours refining Lara's technique, teaching him to play shots that other batsmen could only dream of attempting, and instilling in him the mental discipline that would allow him to bat for hours at a time without losing concentration. In January 1988, at age 18, Lara made his first-class debut for Trinidad and Tobago in the Red Stripe Cup against the Leeward Islands, announcing his arrival with a confident innings that hinted at the greatness to come. In only his second first-class match, he scored 92 against a fearsome Barbados bowling attack that included Joel Garner and Malcolm Marshall, 2 of the most intimidating fast bowlers in cricket history, proving that he possessed not only skill, but also the courage to face down the world's best. By 1990, at just 20 years old, Lara had become Trinidad and Tobago's youngest ever captain, leading his team with a maturity and tactical awareness that belied his years, while continuing to pile up runs at a rate that left cricket statisticians scrambling to find historical comparisons. That same year brought his Test debut for the West Indies against Pakistan, where he scored 44 and 6 in his first match, modest scores that gave no hint of the records he would soon shatter. But it was in 1993 that the cricket world first witnessed the true extent of Lara's genius, when he scored his maiden Test century against Australia at the Adelaide Oval, an innings of such technical perfection and shot-making brilliance that even the legendary Alan Border, Australia's captain, shook his head in amazement and declared that he was watching something special. The stage was set for April 1994, when England toured the West Indies for a 5-match Test series that would transform Lara from a promising young batsman into a global superstar and rewrite cricket's record books in the process. The series began badly for the West Indies, with England winning the first Test and dominating much of the second, leading many cricket experts to predict that the Caribbean team's long period of dominance was finally coming to an end. But in the 5th and final Test at the recreation ground in Antigua, with the series already lost and the West Indies facing the humiliation of a home defeat, Brian Lara produced an innings that defied belief and entered the realm of sporting legend. Walking to the crease on the morning of April 16, 1994, with his team struggling at 12 for 2, Lara began an assault on the English bowling attack that would last for nearly 13 hours and leave spectators, commentators, and even opposing players stunned by its sustained brilliance. Shot after shot flowed from Lara's bat with mathematical precision and artistic beauty, as he picked gaps in the field with the accuracy of a surgeon and dispatched loose deliveries to the boundary with devastating power, all while maintaining a level of concentration that seemed superhuman in its intensity. As his score mounted past 200, then 300, the crowd at the recreation ground began to realize they were witnessing history in the making. And when he finally reached 365 runs, surpassing Garfield Sober's 36-year-old record, the entire stadium erupted in celebration. But Lara was not finished. He continued batting with the same relentless focus until he had reached 375 runs, setting a new world record that established him as cricket's most prolific run scorer, and announced to the world that a new batting genius had arrived. The innings included 45 boundaries and showcased every shot in cricket's repertoire, from delicate glances to the leg side to thunderous drives through the covers, all executed with a timing and placement that bordered on perfection. Just 2 months later, while playing county cricket for Warwickshire against Durham at Edgbaston, Lara produced an even more extraordinary performance, becoming the first player in cricket history to score 500 runs in a first-class innings. His unbeaten 501, achieved off 427 balls in just over 8 hours of batting, included 62 fours and 10 sixes, and demonstrated a level of sustained excellence that had never been seen before and may never be witnessed again.
The achievement was so remarkable that it transcended cricket, making headlines in newspapers around the world and establishing Lara as one of sport's most recognizable figures, a status that brought both fame and enormous pressure, as he became the focal point of West Indies cricket, at a time when the team was beginning its painful decline from world champions to also-rans. Throughout the mid-1990s and early 2000s, as the West Indies struggled to compete with Australia, South Africa, and England, Lara found himself carrying an impossible burden. He was expected to single-handedly rescue his team from increasingly hopeless situations, while opposing bowlers devised increasingly elaborate plans to limit his scoring, and his own teammates failed to provide the support he desperately needed. The pressure reached its peak in 2004, when the West Indies faced England in another Caribbean series, and were once again on the verge of a humiliating home defeat. With his team trailing 3-0 in the 4-match series and facing the prospect of a whitewash, Lara walked out to bat in the final Test at Antigua, the same ground where he had set his first world record 10 years earlier. What followed was perhaps the greatest individual performance in cricket history, as Lara batted for nearly 2 days to score an unbeaten 400 runs, reclaiming the world record from Australia's Matthew Hayden and becoming the first player ever to regain the record for the highest individual Test score. The innings lasted 773 balls and included 43 fours and 4 sixes, stretching over 13 hours of playing time. during which Lara displayed levels of concentration, technique, and mental strength that bordered on the superhuman. But even these extraordinary individual achievements could not mask the sad reality that West Indies cricket was in terminal decline. Plagued by administrative incompetence, player disputes, and a steady exodus of talent to other countries that offered better opportunities and more professional management. Lara found himself increasingly isolated, criticized for his captaincy decisions, while being expected to perform miracles with a bat that even he could not always deliver. The burden of expectation and the frustration of constant defeat began to take its toll on Lara's relationship with the cricket board and his teammates, leading to periods of self-imposed exile from the team and bitter public disputes over contracts, sponsorship deals, and selection policies that dominated cricket headlines throughout the Caribbean. By 2007, as the West Indies stumbled through a disastrous World Cup campaign on home soil, losing early matches to minnow teams and failing to reach even the second round of a tournament they had won twice before, it became clear that Lara's time as a player was coming to an end. The man who had carried West Indies cricket on his shoulders for over a decade announced his retirement after the team's final World Cup match against England, walking off the field at Barbados knowing that an era had ended and that no one was likely to fill the void he was leaving behind. Lara's international career ended with statistics that tell only part of his remarkable story. 11,953 runs in 131 test matches, at an average of 52.88, including 34 centuries and 48 half-centuries, numbers that place him among the greatest batsmen in cricket history, but cannot capture the beauty of his shot-making, or the incredible pressure under which most of those runs were scored. More importantly, he leaves behind a legacy of individual excellence, achieved in the face of collective failure. A reminder that even in team sports, one person with extraordinary talent and unshakable determination can create moments of transcendent beauty that live forever in the memory of those privileged to witness them.